reported that in addition to the Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee paying for Fusion GPS for the dossier, the FBI also reimbursed Christopher Steele, author of the dossier. So why was Fusion GPS co-founder Glenn Simpson meeting with Russian lawyer, remember Nadala? Yeah, both before and after her meeting with Donald Trump Jr. Why is the FBI so reluctant to tell Congress and the American people if the dossier was the basis for the FISA court order permitting the government to spy on Americans associated with President Trump's campaign? And if the dossier was legitimate intelligence document relied on by the court, then why not just tell the country? Here's another one. On January 6, 2017, did James Comey brief President-elect Trump on the dossier? Again, if the dossier was a legitimate intelligence document, then why wait 2 months after the election to inform the president-elect? Why did the Obama administration leak to CNN that Mr. Comey had briefed President-elect Trump on the dossier? Several media outlets had the dossier prior to the briefing, yet no one would print it because most of the documents could not be substantiated. In his congressional testimony, Mr. Comey himself called the dossier salacious and unverified. As pointed out in the Federalist, did the fact that the FBI director had briefed the president-elect on the dossier give it the legitimacy the press needed to go ahead and print something they knew was not accurate? Why did the intelligence community in the final months of the Obama administration en masse names at a record rate? Why, after Mr. Comey was fired on May 9, 2017, was it so critical for a special counsel be named to examine possible Trump-Russian collusion? So critical that James Comey leaked a government document about his conversation with President Trump through a friend to the New York Times. Why is special counsel Robert Mueller, according to the Hill and Circa News in 2009 and 2010, the FBI, through an informant, learned Russia companies seeking to do business in the United States were involved in kickbacks and trade bribes. Yet FBI Director Robert Mueller did not inform Congress and did not inform the Committee of Foreign Investments of the United States, the entity responsible for the decision on whether to approve the Uranium One deal. Why did Robert Mueller not inform CIFAS? And why did the Justice Department put a gag order on the informant? Finally, why wouldn't Attorney General Jeff Sessions, the person with the visibility and responsibility to answer those questions, do his job? On July 27, 2017, 20 House Republican members of the Judiciary Committee sent a letter to the Attorney General calling for a special to get answers to the above questions. On September 28, 2017, 5 House Republican members of the Judiciary Committee met with the Attorney General and Justice Department staff to inquire about the July letter. Justice Department response? Silence. Many people are calling for Jeff Sessions to name a special counsel, ladies and gentlemen, to get answers for the American people. If not, he should step down. Many people are not happy, folks. Republican Jim Jordan represents Ohio's 4th District in the U.S. House of Representatives, is a member of the House Judiciary Committee and the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. Republican Matt Gaetz represents Florida's 1st Congressional District of the U.S. House of Representatives, and both of them, folks, are signed off on what you just heard. And these are the questions they asked. And I believe their questions are what most of us here in America want to know. Once and for all parties aside, this just needs to be cleared up. And that's my takeaway. Did you hear about the awful stabbing that took place right around the holidays? Never good. But let me just kind of break it down for you. 2 men were stabbed during a thwarted theft, apparently at the Mall of America in Minnesota last night. The Bloomington police were dispatched to the men's department at the mall's Macy's department store following reports of a stabbing. Chief Jeff Potts said during a news conference last night it was soon realized the situation was pretty much an interrupted theft, according to cops. Basically, this guy was trying to steal some merchandise in the store, and some shoppers confronted him. The stabbing suspect went into someone else's dressing room in an attempt to steal the person's property. So that's what this one report. There's kind of two different reports. So this is the AP story. I think this is more correct. So anyways, he went in to try to steal somebody else's, and shoppers confronted this gentleman, and he whipped out a knife. Police said the victim began to yell, and when his family rushed over, the second stabbing victim was believed to be a family member or a close friend to help the first victim, but both men are expected to survive. Kim Schwevers told the Star Tribune that she and her children were visiting Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz. Santa Claus. After all, it's a beautiful Santa Claus, too. It was in Macy's. Yeah, I mean, if you've ever seen a Santa Claus, very handsome. You could say he was a beautiful Santa Claus. I guess you could say that. But anyways, just a bad scene. Got a lot of people running. One mother said, my daughter could see people lying on the ground who had been stabbed, and added that police told everyone to leave the area before they closed the store. The two victims were transported to the medical center in Minneapolis, where Bloomington police said that they remain with non-life-threatening injuries, but the suspect, they have him in custody, and it was shoppers that subdued the guy. But again, superficial wounds. But I'm telling you, people are ready for stuff like this. When they see stuff like this happen, I think Americans right now realize that we live in this day of terror where we see the shootings, we see stabbings, we see, Allah Akbar, in New York City. We're seeing it on more streets in the United States. And I think people are much more vigilant, much more willing to protect their families and others, Americans, and willing to take a knife, take a shot, if you will, and not put up with it. And I was talking to a flight attendant the other day that makes a living doing this, being a flight attendant, and he's convinced that if anybody is going to do something crazy beside him, being the first point of contact to pounce, on somebody that means to take the craft down or is threatening somebody, he said he'd had 50 people right on top of him pounce somebody. It's going to take this to root out evil. Is good men and women standing up to evil and protecting our families, protecting ourselves, protecting our neighbors. We're going to have to do a lot more of that. And you know what? I got to commend the pastor there in Texas, nearby, where this shooting took place. He's telling people that we're packed. This is not a gun-free zone. I like that. It's not a gun-free zone because, as the pastor put it, these evil shooters or evil doers, whatever you want to call them, want to shoot up a church. They're doing it in gun-free zones. So his thought is if he announces it right there outside his church steeple, right there on the marquee, this is not a gun-free zone, we're packing, people are going to think twice about going in. And he drew the correlation of basically saying, they're not running into the police department trying to shoot up a bunch of police officers. No, they're not going to do that. Well, they're not going to go into a church where you get a bunch of Bible-toting, gun-carrying Baptists or Pentecostals or whatever flavor of church that you want to go in on Sunday. But that's a great message for everyone concerned, in my opinion, that those that are sitting ducks are going to be mowed down, unfortunately. But if you equip and empower people, and this is about empowerment, as he put it, to have people ready to be able to protect themselves and their family and their parishioners, this is a great move. There's no greater act and responsibility to be a pastor. You are the shepherd of the flock, and I think he gets it. You're there to protect. And when the wolf comes in knocking on the door, that wolf's going to shot so fast. He might get the shot off. That's about it. As this pastor put it, and thunk down to the ground. Remember the 2 Navy SEALs that were being investigated for the strangulation of the death of Army Sergeant Logan Mager and Molly in June? Well, some information has come out about this story. It's very disturbing, very sad. Apparently, Melger confronted the 2 Navy SEALs after discovering their alleged scheme. There was a scheme going on where they reportedly took money from themselves from a fund used to pay informants, according to the Daily Beast. The 2 men tried to get Melger to join the racket, but he declined the offer. Melger later ended up dead in what appeared to be strangulation. Whether the SEALs were involved in the death remains unclear as the investigation continues, but it's looking that way. Melger, 34, was found dead, just to refresh your memory, or if you didn't hear the story, on June 4th at the U.S. Embassy, housing that he shared in Mali with several other special operations personnel working in West Africa on training and counterterrorism and missions. These have there has been no charges so far. No charges in connection with the homicide, but 2 members of the SEAL Team 6, the famous counter-terror unit that killed Osama bin Laden in 2011, were placed on administrative leave pending investigation, according to the Times. The SEALs reportedly told their military leaders that they had found Melger and tried to save him. They also said that Melger was intoxicated that night as he was taking hand-to-hand fighting exercises. The autopsy, however, showed no signs of drug or alcohol usage, according to the report. So there's conflicting stories about that whole matter, and to me it's sad because it is the prestigious SEALs, and yes, the one that took out Osama bin Laden. So this is this kind of a very sad day for those that serve honorably. And hopefully there's these 2 didn't strangle this guy because he's going to whistle blow, but what does it sound like to you? And then they 2 said that he was out drinking, but there was no alcohol in his blood. Again, guilty as charged, but there's, I don't know. I think it's right there. You follow the story right here, and we'll continue talking about it, but it just doesn't. And it's so dishonorable to be able to kill somebody like that. This is not how they're trained. This is not how they should operate. And this is a fellow brother that you serve with. How bad? Wonder Woman, by the way, she says she'll quit if her studio doesn't cut ties with the director accused of harassment. A huge string of women coming out with reports of sexual harassment. This is not good for many people in Hollywood. Don't you think? They're losing jobs by the dozens. People are stepping down. They're being fired. Good for women. And Wonder Woman standing up for women. She said, I've issued an ultimatum to the movie studio producing the popular movies, and if the studio doesn't get rid of our director accused of sexual harassment, I'm not acting here. This is, so many sexual harassment allegations rocking Hollywood. X-Men actress Ellen Page said the director Brett Ratner humiliated her by publicly outing homosexual women. She was 18 at the time. Another actress for the X-Men movie confirmed Page's accusation. Ratner's company has a financial stake in Wonder Woman franchise, and Gadot wants to be completely severed before she'll return to the popular role, according to the anonymous insider. But she's tough and taking a stand on her principles. She also knows the best way to hit people, like Brett Ratner in the wallet. She also knows that Warner Brothers has to side with her on this issue. As it develops, they can't have a movie rooted in women's empowerment being part financed by a man accused of sexual misconduct against women. I told you this thing would get bigger.